Welcome to the Finance Geeks, a podcast about real financial planning. Join us as we get into the nitty-gritty, discussing everything from pensions to portfolios. If you're into numbers, strategies, and running a successful practice, this is your ultimate geeky hangout.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 13 of the Finance Geeks podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Warren Shute and I'm here joined by
Paul Cleworth.
Today we're talking about how we plan our clients' inheritance tax liability. So Paul, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? I've been developing the stables building behind or in our back field, so that's coming along. It's going to be a sort of filming studio and rec room for the staff, and I'm going to do a bit of work over there, do a few podcasts and things. So that's 90% done.
Nice.
It's got, I'd workmen on site for so long now. Had an event in London with Charlie Walker the day after our last episode. That was on the 19th of March, and he's as you know, an adventurer, an explorer, and he talked to about 25 of our clients about his trips to Papua New Guinea. So that was fascinating. Flew to Newcastle last weekend to go karting with my son Miles. He was 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we went up Thursday night, came back Sunday at Warden Law, and he did really, really well. I was so proud of him. We got great weather. There was a few accidents and crashes on the track. It was quite nerve-wracking, but he did just incredibly well, considering it's only his third or fourth race ever. I am definitely middle-aged now, Warren, because last weekend I bought a camper van. An Eldis Fiat Ducato, a CV80. So I've sold my Defender 110, my sort of pride and joy, and I've put it towards this camper van, and it's a 4-berth and 4-seat belt, a panel van basically, 6 meter, 3.5 ton. So we're going to go away with the family. We're going to go away for 1 or 2 nights. It's not the sort of camper van you go around Europe in, really. It's not got a lot of storage space, but it's a lot of fun, and we're going to use it predominantly for going karting with my eldest, Miles. And I bought a new book recently. This is it. Daniel Crosby's The Soul of Wealth.
Wow.
I heard him speak to Abraham Okusanya on a podcast recently on Advisor 3.0, and I think it's really good. I've only just browsed it for the time being, but it says here, 50 reflections on money and meaning. So it's right up my street, this. This is the sort of thing I talk to my clients about. Aligning spending with personal values, the interplay between money and happiness, that's in the book, effective financial planning, and understanding willpower and delayed gratification. So it seems pretty good, and I'm going to read it.
You read it and tell me what it's like.
Okay, yeah. I learned to read. I don't know about yourself. When you learn to be able to read, you can get the book, can't you? Instead of just watch the video.
It sounds good. It sounds riveting. So,
Warren, what have you been up to?
So we've been extremely busy, as I was sort of saying off air. So it's nice just to have a moment to sort of decamp and just sort of relax a little bit, tax year end. That's good. It's all positive stuff, which is nice.
So end of year tax planning, clients of yours filling up ISAs and pensions and all of that stuff, yeah?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Other bits and bobs that we're getting done and stuff, but yeah, that kind of stuff. But it's just all good. It's all it's all nice stuff, and the team have been fantastic, and they've really controlled the whole process. And everyone seems. I think we're done now. It's the 3rd of April, so which is nice. Finished for a few days early. My dad was 100 last Wednesday, which was an amazing achievement. He's American, as I've said. We had some family come over. So we had a big party. Thursday night, we had what we call cousins game nights, with my cousins and aunts and stuff. We had a big game night, which was really good fun. And then on the Saturday, we had a big party. Had 75 guests and a 25-piece brass band. So,
really?
Yeah.
That sounds brilliant.
It was
75 guests. And where did you have a marquee or something?
Yeah,
how did you fit everyone in?
Yeah, in the house and the marquee. So I had a big marquee, the house, and they sort of moved between the two. And then the brass band actually sat outside and played for him. It was warm enough for it. So it was actually the band he used to play in. And bless him, he sat out there wrapped up in like a blanket and stuff, kept warm, and he loved every minute of it. So, it was good.
Brilliant.
It was good fun. Good celebration. And on the Sunday, we had a chef come in and cook all the family a roast dinner. So for Mother's Day, because it was Mother's Day, I think it was fair on Nikki. So we had caterers come in and had a big celebration. So it's been a fantastic weekend. And I finished it and I said to Nikki, do you know what? I'd like to make that an annual event. for no other reason of just to celebrate, just to have fun, because this is what life's about, right? Just making memories and having laughter and happiness and
Making
celebrating.
memories. Love that. Yeah. Tremendous. So longevity's in your genes. Yeah.
Well,
You,
maybe
you
that
look close to 100 yourself. So, or is it just this camera?
No, it's just camera. Hey, Paul, why don't we move on to the main focal point of today, where we're talking about estate planning and how we plan for our clients' inheritance tax. And before the show, you shared with me that acronym that you came up with, which I particularly like. So why don't we run through that for our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I was saying earlier, you and I probably have multiple clients who are late 50s, 60s, pretty large estates. And because of that, they will have an inheritance tax liability on second death. So it's quite topical. The average age of clients I work with now is 59, and a lot of them have got sizable estates, well over the £1 million allowance between husband and wife. So the acronym that I came up with, which obviously with no help from the internet whatsoever, was a gift plan. And the G stands for gifting assets. So as we go through it, we'll talk about them one at a time.
Yeah, let's talk about that's a great idea. Okay, so gifting assets. What's your involvement with that?
Well, I have come across this before. I mean, we do quite a few potentially exempt transfers where our clients make lump sum gifts that are fairly sizable, above and beyond the annual exemption, the £3,000 each. As our listeners probably know, that it takes 7 years to fall outside of the estate. I have had clients wanting to make gifts of properties from themselves to their children, and perhaps they don't realise that there's both capital gains tax if there's a chargeable gain on the property itself, if they're going to realise it by gifting it. There isn't in that example stamp duty for the kids buying the plan because there's buying the property or receiving it because there's no money changing hands. But you just got to be careful. And of course, when you're making sizable gifts, it's exactly that. It's not a loan. You've got to be clear that if it's a gift, it's not yours anymore. You're giving it away. But 7 years is still a reasonable period of time. So we do sometimes do gift inter vivos insurance, which of course covers the liability during that 7-year period.
Yeah, it's we tend to start our gifting plan around about age 70, 75. So we can get a couple of 7 years in before they sort of pass away. And any gift of any size almost inevitably is always through a gifting trust. So a lot of our clients, I'm going to say most, I don't know if it is most or not, but a vast majority of our clients have these trusts set up, and they would just then make any gifts via a gifting trust rather than straight outright gifts, because we're very mindful that we're moving assets from our client's estate into potentially their children's estate, but all we're then potentially doing is making their children's estate chargeable. So we're making that most of our clients' children are going to be successful in their own right. We know what they're going to inherit. So we want to try and keep as much money out of estates as possible. So pretty much always we'll set up a discretionary trust, which is a gifting trust, and we'll make gifts into the gifting trust. And then we kind of repeat that every 7 years. And we normally only get 2, maybe 3 rounds at it. But we have a couple of clients who are particularly wealthy at a young age. We can get a few more in.
Very good. So the I is insurance policies. Now, most of the time, I mean, the best policy, ideally, if money was no object, would be a whole of life policy.
Yeah, 100%.
It pays on second death, and almost all of them now are set up with a fixed term, with a fixed premium, instead of it being as it used to be when there was sort of a maximum cover and the first 10 years relatively low or balanced cover, and they were confusing, I think, complicated, and a lot of people would only keep them for a certain period of time. But insurance companies know that the average duration that clients tend to keep these policies for is about 7 years. And so it's not as if the total cost of all the premiums covers the liability itself. Although when you've got a really big estate, let's say that the tax is £1 million on second death, £1 million joint life second death policy that pays tax-free to the trust and then will pay out as a lump sum to pay. They're expensive. Some of them are like £500, £600, £700 a month more. So I tend to do term assurance policies, joint life second death term policies to age 75, and then say to the clients, look, you've got to start gifting 7 years before this ends, because after that it's useless. What about yourself?
In fairness, we do quite a lot of whole life policies. I'd probably say a vast chunk of our clients have a whole of life plan. Because the way we view it is you're transferring money. It's gifting, but you're gifting into a trust. So you're transferring money from their taxable estate into a trust. And it just so happens if they died, in the early years, they're just going to get a big chunk of money. So it wouldn't be unreasonable for us to have £1 million insured trust fund where the clients are paying. It's normally around about 2% of the sum assured. So £1 million, around about £20,000 a year. Transferring money into a trust fund, build up this lump sum of money to pass down to the next generation.
So it's how you look at it, isn't it? If
Yeah.
you see it as a cost every month, it's just dead money, for want of a better word. It's never going to really work. The clients say, "Oh, that's expensive," because they're paying it out of their taxed income. Or do you set up capital withdrawals from on or offshore bonds and have that fund the whole of life policy? How do you do it?
No, I've not done it through a bond. Sometimes it's funded through a pension plan. Let's say, for example, they've got a pension plan and the idea. So a good example would be, got a pension plan, never going to touch it, Warren. It's £1 million there. We've got all these other assets, we've got rental property income. We live off of that. We'll just pass that down to the children. So why don't you vest that pension now? Get it paying premiums into a life insurance policy, quite comfortably, probably by £1 million, some probably times a £2 million whole of life plan written into trust. So that means your children are going to inherit, under current rules, the pension scheme and the £1 or £2 million life insurance policy. Yeah, it's good, and clients like it. And it's basically, hey, look, these are your options available to you. What works best for you? Do you just want to leave it like this, or do you want to buy an insurance policy and put it into thing? Most people, if they feel they can afford it, they will buy the insurance. Sometimes now we haven't done any yet, but we're looking at what you call back-to-backs. So we'll take a chunk of money, buy an annuity, and with annuity rates probably jumping around about 6%, you can buy quite a large whole of life plan there to fund into trust for the children. So great work. Really good quality financial planning, I think. Whether it's done as a term assurance space 75 or as a whole life contract doesn't really make much difference. But just adding value to your clients, creating wealth.
Okay, good. So the F in gift plan is family trusts. So this is talking about establishing bare trust, discretionary trusts, flexible reversionary trusts, that sort of thing, to manage and protect the assets for the beneficiaries. Do you set up a lot of lifetime trusts for clients, or in this case, will trusts?
Okay, so bit of both. So we do, a lot of clients have lifetime trusts. So good example would be the gifting trust. If you're giving money down to the children, gift the money via a trust. We have a number of clients who've got large assets. So we try and move 325 per individual out of their estate into trust every 7 years. So doing it that way. We don't often get involved with putting the main residence into trust. Some advisors look at doing that kind of thing. And then certainly in wills, we'll recommend that trusts are put in there both on first death and on second death for clients who've got larger estates. So it's fairly common. We get involved with interest in possession trusts or immediate post-death life interest trusts for assets where the deceased wants to control the estate, make sure it's protected, but give somebody, typically a surviving partner, access to the income of an investment or residence in the main residence, doing it that way. I think for a modern day financial planner, it's great work to get involved with estate planning and trust work and working closely with other professionals, other maybe solicitors or something, to do these sort of things with them. But long are the days gone where trusts are just for the ultra wealthy. I think really they're sort of everyday bread and butter things now.
Right, we've got a T for tax efficient investments. So this would be using business property relief, qualifying assets. It would be using sort of AIM listed shares and that sort of thing to benefit from IHT relief. Personally, I don't really like these types of vehicles to try and expedite the process to get money outside of the estate in sort of 2 years. I think it's it's expensive. The fees on these products are quite expensive, and there's a lot of volatility risk as well. I mean, you can, in some cases, lose all your money. So it's all well and good trying to mitigate IHT, but you don't want to lose all your money in the meantime, do you?
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I don't think I've ever done anything like this at all. Any BPR, EIS, any AIM shares or anything like that.
There's quite a lot of providers, aren't there? I think Octopus is probably the most well known, but is it Puma? I'm trying to think some of the others that do this sort of work.
Yeah,
if you're not in this market, we wouldn't know. But
I think the challenge I've got with it is the guys who come out to you are, or girls, are trained in telling you what you want to hear. And really, you also want them to tell you what you don't want to hear. Does that make sense? So, what's the downside risk for my client? What could potentially go wrong? And I worry sometimes that they're often so complex that even they don't understand it because they've never been told. It's not that they're holding something back from you. They're being genuine in sharing everything they've got, but the provider's actually not told their employee, okay, look, this is real risk here.
It comes down to whether the product's going to work and whether, as an advisor, you feel comfortable recommending it. I don't feel comfortable recommending these vehicles, these products. I think the risk is too high and the costs are too high.
Yeah.
Do you know what? We're going to go through the rest of this acronym, but one of the things I'd say straight off the bat, inheritance tax is supposed to be a sort of voluntary tax. I mean, there are things that you can do to mitigate it. It doesn't always. I mean, CGT is supposed to be the same. That there's things that you can do to mitigate it. I don't think it always works like that though, because
No.
with inheritance tax, you either spend all your money, or you gift it all away, or you put these sorts of policies in place, trusts and protection policies in place. Or I suppose if you really wanted to go to town, you could move to Australia where there's no inheritance tax and completely emigrate.
I didn't know that.
There's a few countries around the world where that's the case apparently, but it's not as if you can say as the advisor, I'd recommend you move to Australia. But I also think, having looked into it, that it's largely between people with estates between 1 million and 10 million, the ones that will pay the tax at 40% above that. And I say that because when you get super, ridiculously big estates, and a big estate's probably more than 10 million, that's a very big estate. There are things that those sort of ultra wealthy do using offshore products, using companies, using special trust vehicles and other things to mitigate it. You can live between countries, you can fiddle about with the residency rules. Anyway, let's get back to the acronym. So the T was tax efficient investments. The P is property ownership structuring. So this is adjusting how your property is owned or considering things like equity release to optimize the estate's value for IHT purposes. Do you get involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think typically, the bread and butter stuff is owning the property as tenants in common, and then on first death, leaving a share of the property, normally an interest in possession trust. Doesn't say for inheritance tax, but certainly just putting a protection structure in place. I think the part that we try, what comes up most often is where a family might have a particularly valuable property, and that's mainly their only asset. And the children are living at home or maybe in the grounds of the property. And it's like, how do we protect this from inheritance tax? And then getting the children involved in the ownership of the property now during their lifetime is something that would get involved with as long as solicitors are okay to do the legal work. Some of them will, move away from it. They don't like it. But if you can get a solicitor to make sure the advice is okay and the conveyance is okay, getting the ownership to be joint is certainly an option for them. But, property ownership and structuring, that's probably the main things that we would do on that. Equity release, I think, is a fantastic idea. It's not something that we do an awful lot of, to be fair. I think maybe a couple of times in my career. So talking to clients, but I certainly think it will be something more prominent now. If we'll probably touch on it later on, the legislation around pensions does come into fruition.
Well, we outsource mortgages and equity release, with those with a step qualification and those that are able to do equity release. I think, as you said, it's a really good tool. Interest rates have been really low up until recently, and some of the rates on equity release have been quite good. I think you do have to be careful about deliberate deprivation and not. You can't take money out of the property, then put it into a bond, and then draw an income from it and say, okay, that's now worked. Either spend the money so it's gone, poof, and draw the money out and spend it, or draw the money out and gift it away. If you're going to use equity release, I think for the purposes of mitigating IHT, you have to make sure you don't have a residual interest in that money, because I think that the revenue would query it. I think they've tightened up the rules on that. So lifetime spending was the L in gift plan. This is my favorite one to discuss with clients, in all honesty. This is obviously encouraging them to spend their money or make charitable donations that attract tax relief. I know that from previous podcasts, Warren, you've talked to your clients about spending their money and having a good time. Not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. That was one of the quotes that one of your clients said.
It did, yeah.
Do you do a lot of that, encouraging them to spend their money?
Yeah, I think we do, and we had some clients in recently, particularly quite wealthy individuals, but didn't think they were wealthy, and I think because in their friendship group they probably aren't. That makes sense, but in all intents and purposes, the amount of money that they were spending every year was very, very modest, like 1.5% of their investment asset base.
Yeah.
And just giving them permission, just showing them, and we're actually not there yet because they're new clients. It's about a trust relationship, making sure they feel really comfortable with it. Giving them permission to enjoy their money. And showing them the effects of gifting money to their children and spending extra money and enjoying holidays and stuff. But I have the expression to say, it's like, what brings you most happiness? What is it for you? And it's not really, I don't think, for the advisor to tell the client what they should spend the money on. Arguably, even that they should actually spend it, because some clients don't want to spend it. But I always say, what brings you most happiness? And if it's seeing your money grow and improving in value, and that really genuinely brings you happiness, then that's fine. But if there are other things that bring you more happiness, then maybe we should be doing it. And I always share with the fact that mine is comfort and convenience. I want to fly comfortably. I want to fly at a decent time. I want to travel comfortably. I want to sleep in a comfortable bed in a hotel room. You know me. That's what the priority is for me. Other clients might rock up in a Ferrari or a Porsche or something. That's not my priority. And it's finding out really what's important to your client and helping them to do more of the things that they do. Because, I've said this before on the podcast, is, if they don't do it, their son-in-law or their daughter-in-law will have no hesitation in doing it. And my own family, okay, I don't think my own family listens to podcasts, so I can say it. I had an uncle pass recently, and he always flew economy. Relatively wealthy individual, always flew economy. Now he's passed and his money's gone down to some of his family members. They all fly business. Right. It's like, someone's going to enjoy your money, the fruits of your labor.
So you're enjoying his money. Is that it?
No, I didn't get any. Oh,
that's a shame.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
I've never actually received an inheritance. I'm unlikely to either. So definitely self-made.
Hey, listen, just one thing that came up then, because I had it conveniently highlighted on page 187 of this book, the Soul of Wealth. You were talking about money and happiness and spending. There's a professor in the University of British Columbia called Elizabeth Dunn, and with a guy called Michael Norton, they've written a book called Happy Money, The Science of Happier Spending. And it says 5 spending areas that are identified as being proven to provide the greatest contentment. These are the 5. Number 1, spending on experiences. Number 2, spending on others. Number 3, buying time. Number 4, bypassing materialism. And number 5, funding life's necessities. So that sort of corroborates what you just said about how to spend your money to sort of give you happiness.
It's family holidays, I think, are a big one. Trying to encourage clients to say, have a family holiday. And I said to my wife with this party for my dad, it's a very morbid thing to say, but he's 100. It's a reality. He's probably not got as many tomorrows as he has yesterdays. Okay. So let's have a big celebration now rather than have a big funeral.
Completely.
It's much more. Yeah. It makes more.
I was just talking to Andy Hart recently, or he messaged me, and I think he'd had the same realization, actually. He'd said, I'm going to spend some of this money that I've earned now and enjoy myself now rather than have delayed gratification. And I think I'm practicing what I preach as well. I've talked to a lot of clients about flying, to nice places, nice holidays, and we would always sort of go middle of the road, stretch it out a bit. And we've been able to book some nice holidays this year and looking forward to them. And off to Valencia next week for a week, which is nice. But yeah, I think as I get older, I'm now 48 and a bit. I've realized as I talk to more and more of my clients who are educating me that you've got to not delay it too much, and it's getting that balance right. And if you have the funds, if you have the means, to get on with it and to enjoy yourself and to, splash out a bit.
Completely agree. And we're talking about inheritance. I guess there's an important point to note that most listeners will know this, but gifts out of surplus income are immediately outside of the estate. So as long as you're not depriving your capital, relying on capital, just gifting surplus income.
I think you've read the next one in the gift plan, because A was annual exemptions. So this was making use of the annual exemption, but also gifts out of surplus income. So do you want to explain for our dear listeners how gifts out of normal expenditure or gifts out of income actually works?
I don't think there's a need. If most of our listeners are advisors, if you don't know this, go back to your exam books. But basically, you can gift out of your regular income an additional amount of money that you need, as long as it doesn't deprive you from your lifestyle and means you have to rely on your capital to supplement that.
And it doesn't say anywhere that I've seen on the HMRC's website how much that is. But my best guess from looking at it is a reasonable amount might be 20 or 30%. If it doesn't
No,
detract from your lifestyle, I mean, I
yeah,
suppose it could be any amount. It could be any amount. You've
yeah,
just got to demonstrate that that money's not required for your own lifestyle. And it's also got to be out of a sort of taxable regular income.
yeah.
So it can't be out of capital. It's got to be if someone's got a state
Regular
pension
and
or final
habitual.
salary or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. But best example we had a 95-year-old lady who's since passed away, bless her heart. It must have been over 5 years ago now. She had a pension of about £120,000 a year, inherited from her husband.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
100% spouse's pension. She inherited £120,000 a year, and she lived in a lovely, nice retirement property. But her means were so modest; she lived on less than £2,000 a month. Literally, I couldn't get her to spend her money on anything. She did pensions for her grandson. She gave money away to her grandsons. She wouldn't buy herself a TV, but we could just gift this money away as much as we could. But it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting.
So that's good. And making use of the annual exemption, I mean, we have a Tandem branded gifting register. It's an Excel document. We give it to clients, and on there they can put all the potentially exempt transfers down, the lump sums, and the gifts out of income, as well as the use of the annual exemption. Because of course, if you don't use it, you lose it. And we have a lot of clients that forget to use the previous year, so they can do the £6,000 each of its husband and wife to their children. Good. So that's good. But documenting it is really important, and it's not difficult to do.
No, and I think that's really important. That's a really important point for the listeners. So, if you are a consumer or whether you're a professional, having a register of your past gifts makes your job so much easier for your executors. And I think it's the IHT 402 form. On there is a list of all the gifts. So on the back of our minutes, we'll keep a list of that and how much you gift and what kind of gift it is and who it's to, that kind of thing. So there's a register there, and when they drop off, we just put now exempt. And these are potentially exempt or chargeable lifetime. So you can just keep track. So it makes the administration for your executor's life so much easier.
I'll put in the show notes the standard life version, because they've got a good PDF version, so our listeners can download that gifting register. It's pretty good because it tells you what to do. So hopefully trying to give a bit of help. Yeah. So the N, which we'd sort of touched on before, but this is of the acronym GIFT plan. The N is Nil-Rate Band planning. So this is effectively utilising the Nil-Rate Band and the residence Nil-Rate Band to maximise the amount that can be passed on tax-free. So I imagine this is bread and butter for yourself. Do you include an IHT calc that shows all of these bands and the amounts for your clients?
Oh yeah. With every client gets an IHT calc. Whatever they're doing. The residential Nil-Rate Band is a really interesting one, isn't it? Because I think so many people focus on preservation of tax or minimizing tax as opposed to protecting assets. Yes, you need to leave £175,000 of the main residence to your direct descendants. Quite often or not, what we would do if the client is below the 2 million is leave into a discretionary trust and then get the trustees just to appoint out £175,000 of the main residence to the direct descendants. So we're trying to protect as much of the estate as we can in trust, because I think what we've got to really remember for our clients is, our clients have this estate tax liability. It is very likely the children are going to have one too. You giving them whether it's £1 million or £100,000, it doesn't really make much difference. They're just going to be knocking on that tax liability. So that money's going to be taxed when the client dies, then taxed when the children die, and then potentially taxed when the grandchildren. We've got to get stuff out into trust as much as we can, really.
I think, in my opinion, there's lots of advisors that won't be doing this properly. This is a best guess insofar as if clients are particularly wealthy, making use of their Nil-Rate Band, each of it, every 7 years, gifting it away to a discretionary trust without incurring a chargeable lifetime transfer tax of 20%. What I'm a big fan of, quite frankly, is the a discretionary discounted gift trust. So using that with an offshore bond, when the discount is big enough and the client is young enough and healthy enough and they have the medical, you can, in some cases, give way over £1 million without triggering the 20% charge on above the 325 because the discount's so big. And the remaining amount is the potentially exempt transfer, which takes 7 years. So you can put sizable amounts into a DGT, into an offshore bond, have the client receive the 5% or up to 5% deferred income, or it's a return of capital, isn't it? But a deferred tax. And once it's set up, it can't be stopped, but it can go to if it's a joint bond from husband to wife, wife to husband, and it's one of the best ways, in my opinion, of getting the money out of the estate, whilst retaining, if you like, that withdrawal.
Yeah.
It's not really income, but while withdrawing that ability to spend that money. But again, there's a lot of value to be added when the estate's between 2 million and 2.7 million. When it's above the £2 million and you start losing the Nil-Rate Band, £1 for £2 over it. There's a lot of planning that needs to go on there, especially considering in April 2027, it looks like pensions are going to come into the estate, and all of a sudden, all the calculations will change, and the planning will have to change. For you, do you gift more? Do you spend more out of the pension? Do you do a bigger whole of life policy? So let's talk about that, about the rules that you don't think are going to come in or have not finalised yet, rather.
Yeah, no, I'm not naive to say they're not going to come in, but I have a expression with my clients that we can't play the game unless we know the rules. So I don't want to start preempting. Well, I'm going to kind of contradict myself a little bit. I don't want to start preempting what might happen now and then find out what I preempted isn't actually fact and we've made a mistake. Okay, so the only people we have taken action on so far are clients who are turning age 75. So taking tax-free. So we have a lot of clients who, and this is why Rachel Reeves brought it into fact, not because of our clients, but because of a lot of advisors have this. A lot of clients have got these pension funds and they're never touching them. They've got other income. They don't need it. So we were setting them up typically with death benefits going into a trust, and then they'll just inherit it with their children. Those clients were turning 75 this year, or in the last since the budget. We've taken the tax-free cash, we've gifted it out into trust, and then we've taken the income on that. And for a number of clients, we've actually bought a whole of life policy and started funding the whole of life plan. Yeah, we have. Yeah, because what we're trying to do is just create wealth. We're giving the client the choice and saying, "Hey, look, if you want to leave it and just keep things as they are, that's fine. That's our." It actually started, I'll be completely honest, it actually started just talking it through with a very clever client of mine, who I think is far wiser than me. And he said, look, what are the rules? What can we do? And I'm just talking it through. And why have we done this? We're just explaining we're leaving this pension fund here for your children to inherit. And if the rules do come into fruition, one of our original plans will be to take tax-free cash, gift it away, then buy an insurance policy with that. And then your children would inherit the insured trust fund plus the remaining pension fund. And as I said it, he said, well, why are we waiting? And I was like, do you know, actually, just come to me exactly the same. Why are we waiting? Why don't we do it now? So we actually haven't done it for him, but we've done it for a couple of other people. We're just actually on that journey of thinking, actually, does it really make sense if you're not going to be touching this money to then just pass it down to the children? Why can't we make some use of it straight away?
Yeah. It's that balance between using the money during the client's lifetime to gift it to the children and have them or their grandchildren to have them enjoy gifting that money and seeing the person benefit from it versus leaving it to them in trust later on, which is when they perhaps don't need it. But we mustn't forget that it's not just an easy thing to set up a whole of life policy. It's quite complicated. It's quite difficult for people in their 70s to get insured. Some people won't get insured. Some people will get rated. It's easier. People are in good health and they're young. They're more likely to get cover. Have you not had any issues with that?
No, we do loads of insurance. This is a bit of a gripe I get. Okay, let me get on my soapbox a little bit. So many people, and I'm not implying you whatsoever, but so many people hold themselves up to be a financial planner, and all they do is gather assets. Financial planning is so much more. It does involve income protection, life assurance, whole of life plans. It involves things other than investments. Investments are very, very important.
I completely agree. I've just found that I'm surprised because I don't do a lot of whole of life policies at all. We recommend them in plans. Yeah. Perhaps I'm not saying it correctly. I'm not explaining it correctly. But I just, the uptake of them isn't massive. I've just because of the premiums are so expensive. And it's a
Compared to
question of
what?
how you position it more than
Yeah.
anything.
So
And it was interesting what you said there about, just consider it a gift out of your estate rather than oh my God, you've got to fund this out of your monthly income. They could effectively afford it out of capital and just pay the premium annually or pay it monthly out of capital. They could do that rather than just say, oh, do you know what? My income's £5,000 a month. I can't afford this policy. It's £700 for a lot
there's a
of
couple
cover.
of ways we position it. We sort of say to a client, hey, look, there is a liability that's got to be paid. Someone's got to pay it. So you can either leave that liability for your children to organise, which is fine. They can liquidate some of your estate. They do a direct payment. They can pay it on over a period of time if it's from property, or that you can start pre-funding it now. You can start pre-funding your estate tax. And if you work out, most clients got to live way into their like 110, 120 before they'll have to pay more into an insurance plan than they will
Sure.
actually their beneficiaries get out of the estate. So
I get that.
if the money's coming out of the estate and there's money there already, it kind of makes good sense to do it through an insurance contract. And it's generally about 2% of the sum assured. So £1 million policy is going to be about £20,000 a year. So it's good planning. It's great. And I urge as many planners listen to this to, hey, the investment side of things is important without a doubt. And it's, but giving a comprehensive view, making sure their disability is covered with income protection, their families are safe with life assurance, and their estates protected with trust and whole of life. There's a package that needs to be done here. Is good, sensible financial planning.
Very good. Very good. Do you know, it wouldn't be the Finance Geeks if I didn't have some stats on inheritance tax.
Oh, good. Go for it. Go for it.
So I perhaps it's not that well known, but this is just data that I happen to have found, and the data for this, the links for this are in the show notes. But in terms of the 2021-22 tax year, inheritance tax receipts were approximately 6 billion. So they were 0.8% of HMRC's tax take on in that year of 715 billion. And I think now it's fairly similar. It's about 7 or 8%. It's not massive. But interestingly, the demographics of that, only 3.73% in the 2021 year of estates paid inheritance tax, and the majority of those taxable estates were sort of valued between 1 million and £1.5 million, and the average tax bill was 161,000. So if you have got an estate of 1 to 1.5 million, and you're paying 40% on tax above usually the £1 million figure, it might have been a bit lower then the executors are the ones liable to pay it, but there's usually some assets. If they go and get advice, there'll be either cash or ISAs or pension assets or something where they can pay that tax and then get the grant of probate and distribute the rest of the assets. But it says that estates valued at over £10 million at an average tax bill of £4 million, but often employed various reliefs and planning strategies resulting in a lower effective rate of tax. So there's evidence to show that, and data to show that for particularly large estates, they're going to use advanced planning techniques, including use of companies, trusts, overseas structures, various ways to mitigate IHT without,
The work that the National Farmers Union have done with the agricultural property work, really bring it to the forefront. I think it's amazing. The lack of effort the Federation of Small Businesses done for business property relief, I think, is appalling. But most of our clients are business owners, and now all of a sudden we have an additional liability for their company shares. So I think it's really important that the work that a good financial planner can do to help protect the family legacy. Really, now things go on. You and I, pre-budget announcement or now we pass away, everything passes down to our kids, and the business can carry on. As of a few days' time, there's going to be a big tax liability.
The one of the perhaps less known ways of reducing IHT and certainly reducing the rate of IHT, and it's something that I've done myself, is to in my wife's will, we've updated it so that 10% of our net estate, it's actually exactly that figure, gets left to charity. So we've both chosen two charities. Whatever they figure they end up getting, the executors make sure that 10% of the net estate and the figures gets paid to charities. And then the IHT rate, as I'm sure you know, falls from 40% to 36%. And it's the recipients, the beneficiaries ultimately get it slightly less, but it's not considerably less. And it's a way of, I say to my clients, it's a way of buying your way into heaven. by making these gifts on your deathbed.
So,
And any method to reduce tax is probably a good thing. Get money to charity. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I applaud that. And what we've done is I've actually set up the Lexington Foundation, so we have a Lexington charity that will receive that 10% in our will, and we've done it for a couple of clients too. So that they then can then decide when they then gift this money away. So the charity receives the money and they say, okay, well, look, we're going to transfer this money onto these different charity donations rather than it going to. One thing I don't like about the percentage amounts in states is there is lots of documented evidence of charities making the life of executors hell because they're trying to get the biggest bang for their buck. You say, okay, we'll leave 10% to this particular charity. Okay, and then that charity argues, no, the valuation of that property is not that; it's higher than that, and this, that, and the other. And it makes
I've not come across that.
Yeah, you Google it; it's loads. Yeah, it's been on Money Box dozens of times. There's a lot.
I might change my will then. Won't give them anything.
Well, hey, just set your own foundation up. Set your own, Paul Cleworth charity up. It's dead straightforward, dead easy. And if the turnover is below a certain level, which I forget, it's about £5,000 or £10,000 a year, you don't even need to register it with HMRC or anything. That charity can receive, or that foundation can receive your legacy, and then the trustees of that will at that stage will have to register with HMRC, and they can then distribute the money at their leisure.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up just lastly here, because it was I think it's there's a lack of knowledge around this, not necessarily with all advisors, but with the general public, is that just having a will in itself, doesn't reduce IHT. I mean, all it really does is put the right money in the right hands at the right time. And what it does do, when you appoint executors and guardians and get the structure right, it can assist if you get certain trusts set up and you make use of nil-rate bands and residence nil-rate bands. But ultimately, it doesn't automatically in any way reduce your IHT bill. So I did come across a really quite a nice a summary, if you like, when I was doing some research on this about what a will actually does. And it said, think of it like this. A will is like a map. So the will is the map. The IHT planning is the diet and exercise plan that keeps the pot from growing too big in the first place. And you both need to work. They both need to work together. And I was trying to sort of have a way of explaining how a will works to a client in a way that's going to make them understand the importance of having one, but that it's a constant thing that you've got to update the will. You've got to make sure you've got LPAs. You've got to make sure as part of your estate planning, you've got these things in place and that you have the right type of trusts and gifts and everything set up in the will. But what about yourself? You actually write wills, don't you, for your clients? Because I outsource them.
Yeah, no, we don't write them. We take the instruction down, we get them written, and then we get them approved. So we don't write the wills ourselves, but we have a firm that will do all the writing for us. We just take that. We used to refer it out to a firm of lawyers. This is back in the day, we'd send a fax off to them with the details, and then the client would come back in a year later and they wouldn't have it done. We're like, so we needed to try and get it sorted. So that's what we do. We take the instruction down, we send it off ourselves, so they draft it up and we get it agreed, so we can just put it in place.
I take ownership then, I like it.
Yeah, but I think one thing for maybe the newer advisors to bear in mind is if your clients aren't married or a civil partnership, the assets won't flow to the surviving spouse free of tax. Yeah. So it's really important. There's potentially a inheritance tax liability on first death, not just on second death.
I've written an article for clients of mine that are not married on the benefits of getting married, and I sent it to them. I branded it and everything. There's more than one benefit. I can send it to you. In fact, I can include this as well in the show notes. It's a tandem branded document that says these are the benefits of getting married. And again, it's perhaps misunderstood that just if you're together for 30 years, it makes no difference. No, if you're not married or in a civil partnership, there can be a tax liability on first death.
My wife, Nikki, laughs at me. She thinks I've married more people than the local vicar because I am responsible for several marriages with our clients. Yeah, because it's wrong, I believe. But
get down the registry office.
There's a tax. Yeah, some of them do it that way. It's just there's a tax benefit of doing that. And then little nuances if they have overseas properties when they draft their overseas will, which they'll need not to revoke their UK will. That's an important thing to make sure that they don't do. I think law globally tends to come from the UK, and the first line of most wills says, "I hereby revoke any formal will written." So they've got to make sure they do that. And making sure when you're doing the inheritance tax calculation, making sure you're including worldwide assets as well.
So we talked a bit about inheritance tax there. I think mitigating inheritance tax is very much about timing, control, intention, and action. So I was trying to get that into an acronym, TCIA, but it didn't seem to work too well. TCIA. But anyway, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It does mean understanding what the client's assets are in full, what their intentions are, making sure that they've got wills, LPAs in place, then setting up trusts, insurance policies, going through gifting. It's a huge subject, estate planning. And I think there are some advisors that specialize in it and others that just see it as an add-on. But if you're a holistic financial planner, you've got to do these things with your clients and make them aware of it.
Attic.
TCIA,
Attic. I love a little quiz.
We do. On that bombshell, have you got any decent quotes for us or anecdotes or anything you wanted to end on in this section? Because I think we've given the focal point a good good going over.
I don't. If you've got anything,
you don't have any.
I don't have
any. Three, of course I have.
All right. So busy. I'm busy writing all this stress for my clients.
It's not as if I can sort of magically come up with quotes. You have to look them up. You have to say, well, what's appropriate for this sort of line of this focal point on inheritance tax? And I've got three for you. One's by Peter Drucker. He was an Austrian-American consultant and author. He's the father of modern management. Anyway, he said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. Mm-hmm. I like that. Do you like that?
I do like that. I like Peter Drucker's work as well. Very clever guy.
Okay. So I've got the second one by Amy Carmichael. She was an Irish Christian missionary and a writer. And she said, you can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving.
Oh, I like that. Well, you're very generous. You're very generous. That means you must love me.
I like giving people my time. I think that's one of the best gifts you can give people, in honesty. Actually listen to them when they talk. And, you're going to say, what did he say? And give them your time, especially your parents. Give them some time. Okay, so the third one here is from Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor between 121 AD and 180 AD. Yeah, of course he is. The Stoic philosopher, Marcus Aurelius. Yeah, best known for his book Meditations. Look that up. It's a great personal reflection, a sort of Stoic reflections on leadership, duty, morality, and self-discipline. It's on Amazon. I'm going to leave a link to that in the show notes.
Way too much time on your hands.
I like all this Stoic wisdom. Anyway, he said, apparently, because it was like 2,000 years ago nearly, do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you while you live, while it is in your power, be good.
Okay.
I think he's sort of saying, get on with it,
Okay, all right.
It's obvious, isn't it? Not going to live 10,000 years. It'd be good if you did. But,
God, yeah, definitely. Oh, Paul, is that a wrap for today?
I think so. We talked a bit about IHT there and gifting and some of the things that we do, but it's an ongoing, it's a subject that never ends, to be honest, and it's getting bigger and bigger, IHT plan, isn't it? Because of this not just threat, but the fact that our pensions are probably going to come into the estate from 2027. There's more good work that advisors need to do.
I think Rachel Reeves would have made it much simpler on all pension trustees and everything in the world is just say, hey, look, pre or post 75, when you die, your beneficiaries pay income tax on the money. Just keep it simple. And yet she's gone and thrown this bombshell in. So let's see what comes out in the wash. It's, I've heard some great nicknames for her. Bless her.
We'll get into that next episode.
Yeah, definitely. It's great. Okay, well, that's a wrap for today. Thank you for listening or watching. We appreciate you doing so. Please leave a like and a comment and let us know what you'd like us to cover in future episodes. But that's a wrap for today. Thank you for joining us. That's bye from me.
Hey, thanks, guys. It's bye from me as well. Sound like Jeremy Paxman, don't we, on Mastermind?
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Finance Geeks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. Drop your comments and questions on YouTube, and be sure to follow us on social media. Join us next time for more insights to boost your financial planning game.